Hey, 2 weeks in a row. Last week we did Zatoichi real quick. This week, we're gonna do 4 movies real quick. But while Zatoichi was chronologically correct, I think I'm going to use this as a real true episode 1 because they are movies I have already seen, but this time, by way of catch-up, I'm going to use them as kind of a way to talk a little bit about the history, maybe why I'm doing this in the first place, why it interests me, all that stuff. So keep that in mind as I now start to talk about the first of the 4 films, Come Drink With Me from 1966. So it's been the longest since I've seen this, but I did remember 2 things most vividly, the first being Cheng Pei, the star of the show. And the, I guess, woman protagonist isn't necessarily a new thing at this point. The director King Hu certainly stuck with it and turned it into maybe a brand new trend all on its own. But when Cheng Pei came in, she had also been working up until this point already, but this really launched her into superstardom, certainly for the time, and continued to do so up until today. She was literally just in the Mulan live-action remake. And then the other thing I remembered, in fact, maybe the reason I put this on the list in the first place was the director King Hu, who was basically reinventing the genre at the time. Wuxia as a genre existed long before it did in film, but this was kind of having a moment at this point, and he was the one that really kind of perfected it in film, certainly during the 60s and 70s. And it kind of began with this, with Come Drink, the new wave, or the first new wave, as it was termed, began more or less with this, with Come Drink With Me. So that's another reason why it made the list, which, by the way, this movie is about the evil jade-faced tiger who has kidnapped the son of a governor. So the governor sends his daughter, played by Cheng Pei, Golden Swallow, to rescue him, but she's ambushed by Drunken Cat. And it basically unfolds from there in pretty linear fashion, not in a bad way. Again, these are all proven classics. You don't need me to tell you that. But I feel like the next movie I'm going to talk about, The One-Armed Swordsman from 1967, had a bit more going on in that department. And it might be because it was done by Cheh was the director. You're going to hear about him over and over if you look up any of this stuff, if you keep listening to these videos. His films were definitely a bit more accessible, I would say. You probably hear about him a bit more than King Hu, for reasons we'll talk about for the next couple movies. But The One-Armed Swordsman has this story wherein a master is defended by a loyal student whose son is then, he ends up dying, so the master raises his son in his stead after that, except the son is an outcast in the school. The students do not like him, end up chopping off his hand and leaving him for dead. I'm sorry, chopping off his arm, as you might have guessed, and leaving him for dead. He is nursed back to health by a loving woman. They fall in love. He is kind of sworn off the kung fu world, but sees injustice and can't altogether remove himself from wanting to make a difference. Luckily, the woman he has fallen in love with has inherited a book from her dead parents that has been halfway burned through, and it's all of the left side of the body stuff that has been burned away. And so he studies the remaining right side stuff and becomes a master. And if that sounds a little bit silly, great. I mean, that's kind of all early cinema to some extent in every culture, but certainly I've noticed there is a rock, paper, scissors element, and it's something that does pop up in a lot of Cheng Cheh's films from here on out, which again, we'll return to. But it doesn't take away from it at all. If anything, you come to love it, absolutely. Because at this point in the story, he comes back in and the rival school has both a competing technique, but also a competing invention in I don't remember the specific name of it, but it's a sword. A sword lock might be it actually, that is kind of has this clamp on it. So when the students of the Golden Sword hit, they clamp down on it and then they have no power anymore. So there's that aspect to it. Also, the one-armed swordsman's technique then being what can overcome there. So like I said, kind of rock, paper, scissors, but it's thoroughly entertaining because of the other work that it does do. Jimmy Wang Yu is another star that you'll hear about, again, over and over, whose career was launched by this movie, much in the way that Pei Pei's career was launched by Come Drink With Me. But whereas Cheh went on to produce, I think, darn near 100 films for the Shaw Brothers, King Hu left right after Come Drink With Me and continued to produce films in Taiwan, of all places. The next of which was Dragon Inn. And I found Dragon Inn to be a little bit more of a complete package than Come Drink With Me, for my money anyways. It tells the story of two competing generals, one that has lost to the sitting emperor's general, has been beheaded as a result, and his family exiled. So the story that the movie treats has to do with that exiled family as they're on their way out of China, stop at the Dragon Inn, where the general that has lost, General Yu, I think it is, has planned to have them murdered. So a bit more of a bottle episode, you could say, than Come Drink With Me, but I think for that reason it seems, like I said, like more of kind of a complete package, like a complete story there that has some intrigue. There are some secret agents, it seems like, that kind of come out of the woodwork, who against who. There's some obvious martial arts going on, which this is also probably a good movie to talk about the martial arts of the time, because it's not, it hasn't quite reached the technicality of, say, a Jackie Chan or something like that, which is another sort of new wave of Hong Kong cinema that would happen eventually. This is much more interpretive in nature, especially when it comes to King Hu and his pieces. He likes trampolines, he likes single swings that kind of take out multiple enemies at once. So you're kind of doing a lot of the work in your head, maybe, if you can suspend your disbelief a bit. There's maybe a little bit of that going on, but not that it's not entertaining, not that it's not accomplished. Again, Cheng Pei, Jimmy Wang Yu, all very accomplished and very, very good. Although in Dragon Inn, I haven't noted who the main guy is. Shi Chun as Xiao Xiaoxi, all apologies, is the martial arts expert from Dragon Inn. And does a fantastic job. Again, I'm not trying to take away from any of that. It's just a different era, and I can't believe I've gotten this far without mentioning Crouching Tiger, but that was made as very much an homage to the King Hu films, to these very specific films. So think about more like that rather than, you know, a Jackie Chan or a Donnie Yen, which is just highly technical and all that stuff. So that's the kind of martial arts that we're dealing with and continue to deal with as we move into the last movie I'm going to talk about, A Touch of Zen from 1971, even though he did, like I mentioned, start filming it right after Dragon Inn in '67. He released it in 2 parts at the time. He, I believe, was still filming the second part as he released the first part. And it's since been put together. It's about 3 hours long. So, as you can imagine, the epic part of wuxia epic has been dialed all the way up for A Touch of Zen, and to wonderful effect. Again, another movie I don't have to recommend because everybody else is at this point for 40 years. But it tells another story of another evil eunuch, which I really need to look this up. I don't know the story behind this, but it was another evil eunuch general from Dragon Inn that was the problem. So in any event, he comes to town looking for a fugitive that has already befriended kind of a lazy painter. So it starts off pretty small and then turns into kind of a ghost story with some maybe Home Alone elements, wherein the star, oh man, it's Shi Chun again. I'm so sorry. Same guy from Dragon Inn, getting the work done in this one, although you might at least, I mean, okay, it's never completely equal. I don't want to ever downplay the amount that these female protagonists do in these stories. Again, it's really surprising, I think, looking back for the time, just all of the above. But she does kind of disappear at the very least after she has a kid. So that it covers a lot. It covers a lot of time. Again, it covers a lot of genres in a way. He just toys with a lot of different looks and lenses. And honestly, that gets at what makes this stand out, what makes a lot of King Hu's work stand out above some of the Shaw Brothers stuff. But also this one in particular, A Touch of Zen, it's flat out gorgeous. It is just absolutely breathtaking. Certainly as the movie itself opens up and it covers so much time that it does open up both thematically, but also there's lots more wide open spaces as the movie goes on. It's just flat out gorgeous. There's a lot to appreciate as far as that goes. A lot of the outdoor photography is kind of next level stuff. Excellent grasp on imagery. King Hu is one of those special filmmakers that I'm sure I will mention again at some point for that reason. But if I had to go back, consider all of these, consider everything so far, I would say A Touch of Zen is maybe the wuxia film for wuxia films. If that's what you're looking for, I would check that one out. Again, it is 3 hours long, so you're getting the epic, you're getting that Crouching Tiger stuff before Crouching Tiger. If you want something that's a bit more contained and yet still awfully instructive and entertaining, then you're maybe looking at Dragon Inn. But I would keep those all apart from One-Armed Swordsman, even though that would also be considered a wuxia. It's in a different school, but is also the beginning of that different school. So really good spread, and I think that's where we'll end it this time around. So next week I'm going to be talking about the movie I did already mention last week, the reason I watched Zatoichi in the first place, because he does either match up or join again. I don't know yet, but with the One-Armed Swordsman, and I believe that film is literally called Zatoichi and the One-Armed Swordsman. There might even be some debate as to whether or not is the actual One-Armed Swordsman or just a One-Armed Swordsman, because again, there began to be a lot after the titular first One-Armed Swordsman that we talked about in '67. So come back for that next time. And thanks for hanging out. As always, we appreciate it and we love you all. So thank you and goodbye.